You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show.
The 70% of people out there listening to the show today are going to need some level of care. It doesn't necessarily mean that 70% are going to end up in a nursing home, but 70% of people will need some assistance out there. The biggest fear is running out of money for the retiree, but what we see is not enough people spend enough of their money.
Cris prides himself in what matters to you. This is the Rite Retirement Show.
Hi there. Welcome to our show. This is the Rite Retirement Show. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. With us today, certified financial planner and financial advisor Cris Wallace. He's president of WG Financial Group. And then also with us is Graham Bauer. He's also a certified financial planner, financial advisor, and enrolled agent at the firm. I want to give you the phone number that you're going to need as we start this show, because both Cris and Graham are here to help you plan smarter, retire stronger, and play, living your best life ever in retirement. So if there's anything we say today that you think, wow, I have questions, I want to get more answers on that, I want to get this explained to me, call or text the word visit 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010. This is a complimentary discovery session. And also remember, throughout the week, you can check us out on Facebook for any show visuals or any latest retirement updates that Cris posts throughout the week. And also remember, you can catch this show anytime, anywhere on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or at WGFinancialGroup.com. So hello to you both, Cris and Graham. Great to be here with you.
Always great to be here with you, Luann. So much fun.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Did you either of you guys do a bracket this year?
I did not.
No, I didn't. I actually did not. The NIL thing kind of ruined a little bit of me, but there were some pretty good upsets.
Yeah,
which is surprising.
There always are. It's not when you're not in a 7-game series, anybody can pull one out. I don't know anything about college basketball, but I'm leading in one of mine. I actually think it seems like in these types of things, ignorance is maybe the best strategy.
Don't overthink it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So was it Florida? They got upset by Iowa?
Yeah, I think so.
I know the Northern Alabama fans were really happy to hear that, I'm sure.
I know. But hey, Alabama's still hanging in there, I think, right? They're still in it. So a lot of happy listeners right now. But now those types of things, even though I don't really follow it, it kind of makes the year, fun, to just have those kind of helps you break up time a little bit more.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorite movies. So I grew up playing basketball. I still love to shoot. Any listener out there, 50 or older, want to challenge me to a 3-point shooting contest, I'll be happy to take your money. Because this old man still got it. Ask my kids. No, just kidding. One of my all-time favorite movies is Hoosiers.
Oh, I love that movie.
What a great movie. What a great story. I love a Cinderella story.
Yes.
That's kind of when I do watch the 64 brackets, and I love to see the upsets. I just absolutely love it. And it's so much fun.
Yeah, there's something about humans where it's just fun to see the underdog succeed. There's, especially when there's the big kind of villain who gets taken down. It's a story that gets told over and over, but it's always satisfying.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely awesome.
All right. Well, I guess let's get right to it, guys. Cris, why don't you fill us in on a federal minute, please?
Yeah. So I can't remember. I was talking with Graham about this, and actually with my team earlier in the week, which earlier in the week is actually just yesterday, since it's Tuesday recording. And this is kind of a big rule that I think we may have talked about this before, but I really can't remember. But regardless, it bears repeating again. So when you have a TSP, let's just make an example. We've got, let's just call him John. So John is a federal employee. John has a TSP. And let's just say his wife, let's call her Jane. She is, let's say she stays at home. She stayed at home, did the hard job, raised the kids. She's a domestic engineer, as I like to call it. So John's a federal employee, and he has a TSP, and John passes away. Now, Jane is the primary beneficiary on his TSP. And so Jane will inherit that TSP. And oftentimes, doesn't happen this way all the time, but I've seen it more often than not, where the spouse will just put the TSP in her name. And again, we're just going to say this is Jane. She's the beneficiary. John passes. Jane's going to put the TSP into her name. Now, that can be dangerous because according to the TSP distribution rules, the payment when Jane passes away, So now Jane has this. The payment when Jane passes away has to be paid directly to the beneficiaries, which let's say they have Alex and Samson is maybe their two kids. So they have two sons, Alex and Samson. So John has passed. Jane put the TSP into her name, and then now Jane passes away. So under IRA rules, you can do the inherited IRA. You have the 10-year rule, but the TSP has this kind of wonky distribution where Alex and Samson would not be able to set up an inherited IRA because the TSP rules say that the check must be made directly out to the beneficiary. It's on page 12 of the TSP account booklet. Let's see. I have it pulled up here. I'll just tell you the name of it. Your account, a guide for beneficiary participants. So you can find this online. So it's important to know because let's just say that John had $1 million TSP. Jane put it in her name and she left it and it grew to $2 million. And now Alex and Samson, if they're 50-50 beneficiaries, are going to have to take a check for $1 million apiece. And here's the thing, Graham, you know this, you can't do a 60-day rollover with an inherited IRA. It doesn't work that way. So that rule doesn't exist for the inherited IRA. So one of the things that we would caution you about doing is if you are let's say a widow or a widower, you want to be cautious of that because you're leaving the money in the TSP and you're potentially foregoing a rule that is available, which is the 10-year IRA stretch rule that's available because the money's left in a TSP and the TSP rules state that the payout has to be paid directly to the beneficiary. So I wanted to bring that up because I think that, again, it's really worth someone looking at and really factoring into their retirement planning.
Yeah, and you alluded to this, but I just want to make sure it is very clear to everybody. If in that scenario, Mr. Federal Employee had his TSP in an IRA and then he passed away and his wife moved it into her own IRA, when she passed away, it's a fairly simple transfer to just move it into the IRA in the kids' names, split 50-50, and that 10-year rule kicks in.
Yeah, inherited IRA.
Yeah, as long as it's in as long as it's coming from an IRA to the inherited IRA, they do not have to distribute it all in 1 year. So it's one of those things that, TSP isn't going to tell you that. There's nobody, they're not going to send you a notification when your spouse dies initially, hey, you can roll it into your name, but beware if you do that, there's a chance that if you pass away with it still in TSP, it's all got to get distributed and all taxes will be due. So I think it kind of gets into, and we probably won't spend too much time on this, but we do some workshops with federal employees learning about their benefits. And one guest speaker recently said something that I really liked, where he said that the TSP is a holding company, not a retirement planning company.
Correct.
And I think that's a really good way to think about it because it's a holding company for your money. They're holding the money for you. And while you're working, it's a great holding company. It's simple, easy to use. You get a 5% match if you're doing 5%, which is great. And, low fees, which is what they always talk about, low fees.
Yeah.
But that's just what they are. They're a holding company, similar to how your bank is just holding your money. If you spend too much money 1 month and you're not going to be able to make your rent payment, your bank's not necessarily going to reach out to you and say, hey, do you need to sit down and have a budgeting conversation to see how this cannot happen next month? They're just kind of holding the money for you. So those are the types of things that, while you're accumulating, it might be a great vehicle, but in retirement, it's not really what it was made for.
Yeah. And I think the point here, I love the analogy there that it's a great holder of your money, so to speak. They're not a retirement planning firm. And one of the things I hear often with TSP is like, oh, well, it's low fees. It's like, okay, well, this rule right here could potentially, if you just multiply that times a 40% tax rate, so just, on $1 million, that's $400,000 you just cost your kids and potential taxation, maybe higher if tax rates move, all because you were like, hey, the TSP has low fees. So when you look at fees, whether you pay them with an advisor or anyone, you're looking at the value that the fees bring, not just the fees themselves, but the additional value that comes along. So it just bears repeating. And if we have talked about this before, my bad. But we want to make sure that we go over it again because we've seen this previously, and it's important to bring this stuff up.
Yeah, it is. And it's one of those things similar to a beneficiary designation that is so easily corrected. It's not a hard thing to, sometimes when we talk about those very high impact to your taxes or whatever type things like this, that would be a very high impact tax event. It's also an incredibly avoidable one. So I think when people hear that, they might get freaked out and go, oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. How do I get that to not happen? And the answer is just really, really simple. At the end of the day, it's just, if you're in that scenario, don't move it into an inherited TSP just because you're very likely to cost your kids a lot more taxes than you need to. And I know some people think, well, I'll be dead. What do I care if they pay taxes? And I can understand that, but there's no reason to pay the government more of the money. I'm sure and nobody listening would rather the government gets more of their money than their kids do. You might not care if your kids get an inheritance or that's that large, but I highly doubt anybody is sitting there thinking, well, honestly, I'd rather the government just get more of the money than my kids. So again, it's one of those very avoidable things, but I think it is commonly and, easily missed if you don't know what to look for.
Yeah, agreed, Graham. This is this is a good one for a lot of people listening to the show today that are government employees to think about and consider, especially if you're retired.
Right.
It bears repeating again. So,
and we do know we have a lot of people listening. So I want to give you the phone number too. If you have, want to go over more of this with Cris and Graham and the team at WG Financial Group, just call, or you can text the word visit to 256-937-2010. 256-937-2010. It's a complimentary discovery session, guys. So happy to have you along with us. You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show. I'm Luann Fulmer. And now, Cris, I want to get into just something, we talk about retirement all the time on our show because you guys work with retirees, people who are retired or people who are preparing to retire. And so as people get close to retirement, there's kind of this apprehension about retiring. I think a lot of people can't wait, but I think there's a few others that might be kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to really be ready to give up my career. What is going on emotionally that most people don't realize?
Well, there's a lot of psychology, and you're right. We do talk about retirement a lot on the radio show because obviously it's based on that. But I think what people tend to forget is they put so much emphasis on saving a certain amount of money, knowing that they're going to spend a certain amount of money, and they forget about the emotional side of things and the psychological heaviness of retirement. And I think one of the first things we got to think about is retirement is not just a financial event. It's a life transition. And I think people forget that. And we call it the retirement rhythm at the office. And we usually say it takes somewhere around a year for most people to get into the retirement rhythm. And I think the other thing that doesn't get enough credit is there's a loss of identity, because I put a lot of I guess I don't want to call it my self-worth. Maybe it is my self-worth. But my identity in what I do. And when you leave work, you no longer are going to have that same level of identity. And I've kind of used this as an example. Like, your spouse is probably not going to tell you great job every time you put your dishes in the dishwasher. Like at work, you may have a very complimentary boss and he or she may say, hey, great job. Or your team may say, hey, that was a great idea. Thanks a lot. Your wife is not going to tell you, or your husband is not going to tell you, hey, great idea for taking out the trash. It was overflowing and really glad you did that. Great job. And so you're not going to have that. So there's also the fear of the unknown, the fear of not having a paycheck, and then shifting from that accumulation mindset to the distribution mindset, pulling out of something you've been pushing money into for forever. And all of these things just make the psychological side of retirement really, really heavy.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I mean, just to touch on specifically that last point, as far as your, going from the accumulation to the distribution phase in your life, one thing I've been talking to people a lot more about recently, as we've had a lot of folks coming in that are current clients and finally retiring, is that a lot of times your budget might even feel like you have more money when you're retired to live on a monthly basis than before you retired, just because of the fact that, what are you saving for anymore? For a lot of people, especially if you're in a position where you saved really well for retirement, I mean, that means that you're probably naturally a saver. And that's probably a line item on your budget. For most people out there who saved well for retirement, some form of savings is a line item on their budget because they didn't accidentally save a bunch of money in their retirement accounts. That was a purposeful thing. And that goes away. Even just the feeling of, getting your net paycheck and saying, I want to put $500, back into a savings account. Now, people might still have a little car repair fund or have a account for their property taxes to go into it. And that's fine. I think that's good, not having those expenses sneak up on you. I have no issue with that. But the feeling of saying, hey, I got money out of my paycheck. I got $2,000, $4,000 this week, whatever it is in my paycheck. And I got to put $400 into my Roth, or I got to put $500 back in a savings account, or I put $1,000, $2,000. I mean, what are you doing that for anymore at a certain point? And we have to ask people those questions occasionally. They come in and they're accumulating money and it's saying, hey, what are you saving for? Is there a purpose for this, or is it just a habit? So I think that mindset shift psychologically is really hard for a lot of people. But once they get there, I think it's really freeing because you see that come in and you're just like, hey, this is lifestyle money to pay my bills, my expenses, but it's also fun money at that point. I might not be saving for anything major. So let me use this. Let me find ways to go make memories with my family, with my spouse, with friends, whatever it is. So I think it's a tough mindset shift at the beginning. But I mean, once people get there, I think it's a really great thing psychologically that really gives people the freedom to feel like they can go out and go make the most out of their golden years of retirement.
Yeah, you mentioned the word freedom. I think mentally that's what you're looking for. And I think sometimes you have to almost give yourself permission to do certain things in retirement. And I actually had a conversation with an individual that I work with. He's been a longtime radio listener, longtime client, big football fan. So we have a great time when he comes in the office. We update the financials and talk about football. But one of the things I told him early on when he retired is I said, I think you have to give yourself permission to spend. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. Like I can sit here and tell you the numbers are good till I'm blue in the face, or I can run these Monte Carlos and all of these things, but you have to give yourself permission to spend.
Yeah. And that's hard to do. And
it is.
Especially initially. It's hard to get in that mindset of it's okay. I can go spend money on things that I might not usually, and I don't have to just I don't have to be the lower end shopper in every scenario. I can do this. I can live it up a little bit more because you don't get, and I'm reiterating this. I've already said it, but you just don't get to the point where you're a, retirement millionaire, multimillionaire by not being a good saver. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to out earn a bad spending problem. That's not how most people got there. Most people got there by being good savers. So I would say most people in that scenario, they're going to have a hard time with that transition.
What would you say, Graham, surprises people the most when they actually do retire?
I think the biggest thing that I hear, I'll start with a positive one. There's a few, but one of the biggest things that I hear is I think people are really surprised by how busy they get when they retire, especially for the folks out there with kids and grandkids. I had a couple in the office last night, and they're both retiring within a couple months of each other here pretty soon. And as we were wrapping up, I said, have your kids already talked about how they're going to put you to work once you're done? And they're like, yeah. They said in the family group chat, the second we told them, hey, this is our retirement date, they said, all right, here are the days we need childcare.
Yeah.
So
free babysitter.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But even if you don't have grandkids, I think I'm consistently hearing from people how they're surprised that they retired, they're done with work, and they like, hey, I'm busy. I got stuff going on. I can't come in that day for a meeting. I got this, that, or the other. And that's not the case for everybody, but there is a lot of people. But again, it's one of those things where it takes people a little while to get to that point. And initially, a lot of times you're going to be dealing with that lack of structure in your life, the fact that you don't have somewhere to go every day. So as far as filling those days with activities, and maybe that's a little part-time work, whatever it looks like, you have to be the one to initiate that in a lot of cases, or at least, you have to agree to it when other people are asking you to do it. So I think initially that can be definitely a challenge. also just like we talked about before, adjusting to the feeling of spending without putting anything away. I think that surprises people that, oh, it's okay to spend without savings. And you get into the rhythm, but it takes a little bit. And I think just generally finding purpose, because even if you're busy with things, that's not always purpose. It may just be busyness. So I think another really important thing is not just filling your time with things, but also trying to find what are some things that are really going to give me purpose, where I feel like I'm working towards something, or I feel like I'm making an impact, or whatever it looks like, whether that's volunteer work, whether that's helping with the grandkids a bunch. I think that's a great thing, with childcare prices where they are. Your kids are, I'm sure, very grateful that you're doing that for them. So there's a lot of things that people end up filling their time with. But I think initially just finding purpose, getting in that rhythm, making sure you're not just, sitting at home twiddling your thumbs all the time, and just understanding that, I don't have structure anymore. I have to kind of create my own structure.
Yeah, you mentioned purpose as well. So how many times have you sat down with somebody and they said, I'm going to retire, but I'll never fully retire. I'll always stay busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty common, honestly. Maybe 30% or more of people say something to that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is because that comment comes out because you don't know what you're going to do at that point. So this is why when we're doing the show, when we're sitting down with families in the area, we are encouraging them to have goals, have things that you're going to do, have purpose outside of your job. Because right now, the identity, as we mentioned, is, within your job, and that's your purpose every day. You've got to develop purpose outside of that, because my default is I'll go to work and I'll just work. I'll do something. I won't sit around and that's true. So what happens to me at home if the family's gone or whatever? I'll pull out the laptop on a Saturday sometimes because I don't have anything else to do, so I might as well work and quote unquote be productive. And all of that may be true, but it's just I didn't think about, hey, my wife's going to be out of town and we're almost empty nesters. So when Jen's out of town, I'm kind of by myself, and I didn't think about the purposeful things that I needed to do. Well, retirement is a lot like that, except you got a lot more days that you got to plan for that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think when you think about retirement planning, it's not just dollars, it's like lifestyle and new habits and new behaviors and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's my fear. I know. And, some of my friends are saying what you guys say, they're so, you guys, we are so busy. I just don't know how I ever had time to work, but
that's a great thing.
Yeah,
it is.
It is, except for there's a couple of me and a couple of my friends who are still working, and we're not ready to quit yet, and everybody's like trying to talk us into, even my own daughter. And I'm like, but I, because for me, I'm scared. What will be my purpose? I'll be Gigi, and all that. But I just still don't want to quit my career yet.
Sure. But I think when people are, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. How did I ever work? That's a great thing. Because guess what? You ain't thinking about work now.
Yeah.
You're actually thinking about your family.
Yes.
You're the free babysitter we talked about, which is all good. Every grandparent loves to do that for free. I'm going to charge my kids, so just beware if you're listening.
You will not.
Absolutely.
We're doing market average rates.
You will not. You will be begging them to bring the children by.
Luann, I am an entrepreneur. My kids are getting charged if I'm going to babysit.
Oh my gosh, you are super funny.
Joking.
I know.
I'm glad you say I'm funny because, at home, I don't quite get the same laughter at home.
I know.
That's why Chris is never retiring.
See?
That's right.
Yeah.
Got to come in the office so somebody laughs at his
somebody
jokes.
laughs at his corny jokes.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's see here. Now let's kind of get into something that we know a lot of people can relate to. And this is the fact that people know they need to sit down with people like you guys, but they just don't. They're kind of procrastinating. So why? Why are they doing this? What are they afraid of, or are they afraid?
I think most of us are wired to procrastinate. There are certain things in my life I procrastinate on. And Jen so I'm going to, all right, might as well be transparent.
Oh no, Graham, what are we in for?
So in the mornings, I get up and, I go to the gym and I kind of have my morning routine, and it's inevitable that I will wait till the last minute to get in the shower. Okay?
Oh.
So I'm moving around the house at a kind of cardio pace. I'm getting a little cardio while I'm trying to get ready.
Okay.
And Jen has dubbed it tornado time.
Oh.
So that's what she calls it.
Well,
so
she's funny too.
She is. Yes. And I laugh at her jokes. So, I walk in from the gym and I'm like, say I'm scurrying in pretty quickly or whatever. And I'll just look over at her and she'll just smile and I'll just smile and she'll say, tornado time. And that is me getting ready. So, all of that to say, I think to some degree, we all have some of that element of procrastination in us, but I think sometimes you don't want to hear something that you don't want to hear. So it's kind of like a fear of hearing something you just don't want to hear, or, I'll get to it later, like I said, on the procrastination side. And then I think there's an element of people out there listening today that'll say, well, we're just not quite ready yet. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard this throughout the years. Cris, I wish I'd have met you 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think some people feel like, well, we don't need retirement planning until I get ready to retire. And that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Graham, you would attest to this. And at your age, you're already planning for down the road. And I think that that's important to be able to do that. And I also think there's an element of intimidation. I mean, hey, we're big, scary people on the radio, right? I'm sure we scare and intimidate a lot of people. And I'm saying that jokingly. There's no reason to be intimidated. I think we all come with our own situation. And when somebody or a family comes in our office, there is no judgment. It's sitting down to have a normal conversation about your situation to see how we can help bring value. And, that is often overlooked, is just, I guess, the feeling of being judged. And that's just not the way that we do that. We don't judge people at the office.
I think that so much, well, it's kind of split, but a lot of financial content online nowadays, or some of the biggest content creators, a lot of times focus on things like the biggest financial mistakes you should avoid and talking to people who are in terrible financial situations. And you almost just watch it to be like, well, good thing I'm not in $400,000 of credit card debt and have a $300,000 liberal arts degree. And, stuff, kind of the extreme scenarios where you can look at it and think, oh, I'm actually doing pretty good.
Glad it's not me. That's not me.
Yeah. And that's not, that is not our target demographic. We're not typically or really hardly ever sitting down with someone who is just on the verge of bankruptcy to berate them about how bad they're doing. So I think people do get that intimidation factor, but honestly, most of what we're doing is educating. It's not like a financial, you're not going under the financial microscope to get critiqued. It's more just, what do you not know that will help you in the future that we can teach you?
What are some of the answers to the questions you don't really know to ask?
Exactly.
And I think from a coaching and education perspective, I think that's what we do really well at the office. So if you're listening to this episode on the way to church or out, on a Sunday morning, you're catching the 30-minute episode. So we always like to say, hey, hop out to the Apple Podcast platform, hop out to Spotify, search the Rite Retirement Show, and pick up the entire episode there. There's still some great stuff we're going to discuss on the back half of the show. You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show. If you'd like to give us a call for your discovery session, you can do that by calling 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010.
Dreaming up your ideal retirement? It starts with a solid plan tailored to your unique goals. Set aside uncertainty by arranging a friendly, informative session with Cris Wallace. Just text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Begin charting your course with confidence.
Are you a federal employee feeling pressure from the early retirement offers like VERA, VSIP, or the Deferred Resignation Program? Recent government initiatives have introduced significant changes to federal retirement programs, making employees feel pressured to consider early retirement or face potential layoffs. At WG Financial Group, we help guide federal employees through these uncertain times. Our team understands the complex federal retirement systems and can help you make informed decisions. Call 256-937-2010 to schedule your complimentary discovery session with us today. We'll help you assess your options and create a personalized retirement plan to help you feel more confident. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 256-937-2010 to book your session. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Would you rather pay more or less in taxes? If you want to pay more, don't do anything. If you want to pay less, talk to Cris Wallace to see what's possible for you. Just text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Again, text VISIT to 256-937-2010.
And I do want to mention that this show does come out as a podcast, so you can catch this anywhere, anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or just go to our website, WGFinancialGroup.com. And thank you so much for joining us. This is the Rite Retirement Show with Cris Wallace, president of WG Financial Group, and then also Graham Bauer. So right now we're talking about just why people procrastinate working with an advisor. And so, Graham, would you say this procrastination is more about money, or do you think it's just more emotional?
I think for most people, it's more emotional than anything, especially as men. You know, we have a tendency, I do the same thing, especially if you're a married guy, to want to just be like, honey, I got this. You know, I got this under control. Mm-hmm. I don't need help. And it's a very common thing for guys in general. You know, I'm the type that if I can do something myself, I want to do it myself and say, I can take care of this. But there are some things in life where it's just fair and honest and truthful, I think, to say, I don't have all the answers to this. I don't know everything. I might know a lot about a topic, but I certainly don't know everything. And it's a good time to see what I don't know. But that's a hard thing to admit sometimes, especially for the career individual and something like an engineer out there, someone who's good with numbers, who's, you know, very smart, very educated, very seasoned person to say, hey, you know, I know a lot about this topic. I've done a good job saving. I feel like I'm saving in the right areas. I feel like I probably have enough to retire. But at the same time, there's some things that you're just not going to know if you don't do something for a living. Just like I couldn't I couldn't walk into a sandwich shop chain and know exactly how to make all of their sandwiches. Just any job, even as simple as it could be, there's some level of, if you're not doing it every day, you're not going to know all of the minor nuances and how to do everything. So I think it is very important to recognize that and also say that it doesn't mean you're doing a bad job at this point either. Our job is not to have you come in and tell you you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. But actually our report card process is highlighting the things you're doing well and the things that maybe you're missing. So we're not just going to come in and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. For some people, they come in and they're doing a lot more things right than they're doing wrong. And it's like, hey, actually this, and this, you're doing a great job at all of those things. And you need to keep doing what you're doing. And then maybe these 2 or 3 things could have some slight improvements to them. But again, our job is to commend you where you're doing well and then point out some areas where you could improve. So I think that's just a shift in mindset of what that meeting's going to look like for a lot of people, because they think they're going to get picked apart, and that's really not the case for most people.
Yeah, I think also when we talk about, is it really more about the money, or is it more emotional than anything? I think some people is, well, I don't want to pay for something, I can do it myself.
Right.
Because we all have this do it ourselves mentality, but we've had do it yourselfers come in the office and they leave doubting in selfers. And I would love to say that we came up with that, but that was actually someone who came in the office that said that. This person said, I came in a do-it-yourselfer, but now I'm actually leaving as a doubting in-selfer.
Wow.
So this person was doubting in themselves. And again, not because we shamed them or anything like that, just the depths of what we're, looking to do there. And I'm going to be honest with you. So we had small group at the house on Sunday, and my friend and I were standing out in the driveway talking, and I need to have a trailer hitch put on my Honda Pilot. I can probably figure it out. I know with YouTube and some things out there, but here's kind of the deal. There's just things I really don't want to do. And if I'm going to be towing something behind the pilot, I want to make sure that it's done
Right.
correctly.
Yeah.
And again, I can probably figure it out. I'm a fairly smart guy if I have some, guidance or whatever. But here's the thing that my buddy said to me. He said, Chris, I don't do stuff like this. He said, I pay somebody to do that. That's why I worked all of my life. I have money now and I will pay somebody to do something like this. And I think that is what, as you work in a job and your salary increases and you save appropriately and you pay off your debt, there are certain things you can pay for convenience. And in this particular case, I'll pay to have the trailer hitched. Now, there's a lot of guys out there, especially engineers. Chris, I can't believe you're paying somebody to put a trailer hitch on your car. Well, believe it, because I'm probably going to do it.
Yeah.
There's just certain things I'm willing to pay for because my time with my wife and my family and also myself, so I can unplug and do the things that I want to do. I'll pay for convenience, especially for things that I don't really love to do. Now, I cleaned the garage out like crazy over the weekend. We took a lot of stuff to the dump. So I did some hard manual labor this weekend. I'm all about that. Yeah. Because it don't take a lot of brain power to load up some old tile in the back, take it to the convenience center and dump it out, So those types of things I don't mind doing. But if things that involve potential safety or just something I've never done before, I'm going to pay somebody to do that. I think you can kind of liken that to retirement. Most people out there have never done it. They really only want to do it once. And sometimes it does pay to have somebody kind of walk that journey with you just to make sure that you're not, doing things that you shouldn't be doing, or maybe you're off down a wrong path and shouldn't be. And we have a lot of engineer clients in the area. They make great money. They could do some of this themselves, but I think they enjoy having the relationship, the knowledge to tap into, the updates in their review meetings, and just being able to reach out and say, hey, I got a question for you. What do you think I should do? I've done some research on this, and what are your thoughts? And we'll go through some things. So I had somebody reach out the other week, getting ready to buy a piece of property. How should I take money out? So we went through like 3 different things, 2 of which he never thought of. This guy's highly intelligent. He's an executive for a company, but he never thought of 2 things. And so there was some value add that I was able to give him. It's actually going to lower his tax obligation, and he'll be able to make a good decision.
Yeah.
It is one of those things where, again, I think you have to, and I do the same thing. There are certain things that if it's really low impact, if you mess up, then that's fine. It's good to learn how to do some things. Some things are higher impact. I mean, when you're, for an example, there are some things I'll fix on my car, some easier things. And then there are some things where I'll look up a video of someone doing it, and they have all these special tools, and they're like, you really got to make sure you do this right, or if you don't do that, it'll create this problem. And I'm just like, it's not worth it. No. It's not worth it. It's going to take me hours. I might mess up and cause myself a lot more damage to my car than it's going to cause for me to just pay somebody to, dig into the engine, do that certain thing. So I do think there is definitely a time and a place where at least sitting down and just having someone lay it out for you, because until you just don't know what you don't know for most people. And I think just having it all laid out, even if it's not for you, even if you think, hey, I'm going to try to do all this myself, which I don't think you're going to for most people, but I think it's good to at least just have an idea of, what are the things that I might be missing.
Yeah, so true. May as well, the person who you are going to pay or thinking about paying as far as doing a project, they have the wisdom. They do it all the time, just as in you guys with retirement planning. You do this all the time, and you can show people how to optimize what they're doing, and it can really make a difference in their retirement, maybe even retiring earlier. So, yeah, so important. And we all procrastinate at all things, but this might be something you probably shouldn't procrastinate in. And Chris, why don't you give us some triggers, some things that trigger people finally deciding to, okay, I think I will get some help. What are some triggering events that you've seen?
Trigger warning.
Right? Trigger warning.
Trigger warning. Well, so like if you wait till the last minute, like you're a couple of years out and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to retire in 2 years. That's like tornado time.
Yeah.
Me running around, trying to get ready to go to work, jumping in the shower, basically doing cardio while I get ready. And so as time gets close to the time when you're going to retire, that can be a triggering event. This market volatility right now that's going on. We got this this war over in Iran, and that can be a trigger. Healthcare scare, whether that be yours or your spouse's, job change, layoff, inheritance, sudden complexity to your financial situation can be a trigger. So those are some of the triggers that really force people to act. But here again, I've seen these triggers happen. I've seen people come in to sit down with us, and I often hear, "Wow, I wish I would have called you 5 years ago."
Oh.
And I was like, "Yeah, I wish you had too, because you'd be a client for 5 years, and we would have you on a straighter path."
Kind of a
Doesn't
straighter
necessarily
path.
means the path that they're on. Doesn't mean that they're broken, but it could have been possibly a little bit better.
Yeah. So as we're talking about procrastinating in seeing an advisor, a financial advisor, there's also some misconceptions about working with an advisor. So why don't we clear up some of those? And Graham, tell us, what do people think working with an advisor is like versus what it actually is?
I think the biggest thing that people will say to me and that I hear, not from clients, but from people coming into the office for the first time, especially in a first meeting, is they are kind of expecting, the Wolf of Wall Street a little bit in some regards, where, we're going to call and be like, hey, there's this company going public for the first time. They got this great new spatula that, turns itself, and you got to put $10,000. That is not at all what we do, for one thing. Or even if that was an extreme example, but they even just think that we have access to some crazy investment strategies that they've never heard of. And I think in general, just focusing in so much on the investments, because for a long time, I don't know if a lot of people have noticed this, but the technical legal term for a lot of the licensures in the industry are investment advisor. Mm-hmm. And over time, the industry, at least I think for a lot of the more holistic people, has shifted to financial planner rather than investment advisor. And I think that is a much, much better description of what, certified financial planners like ourselves are actually doing, because the investments is part of it. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to come in and not hear a word about investments. But in, that second meeting, where that strategy meeting where people come in and we've collected the info and we're laying out a plan, if you're in there for an hour and 15 minutes, we're probably 15, 20 minutes maybe talking about investments. And the other 40 minutes, we're talking about retirement income. We're talking about taxes. Probably 30 minutes are talking about, long-term taxes. And we're talking about your estate planning. And we're talking about how that all fits together. So, you're not going to come in and have us give you an hour presentation on what all of the different sectors you should be investing in are, what their average returns are over time. That stuff is important. And, we talk a little bit about that, but that's not what makes a retirement plan. Is just, should I have 15% international exposure or 20%? That's not the difference between you being able to retire and not being able to retire and being comfortable. So it's part of the picture, but it is not the whole picture. And I think people come in expecting that we are just going to be on that the whole time. And I think that it's really kind of the opposite. That's probably one of the lower amounts of time spent on, just because for most people, that's actually a lot simpler than everything else.
Yeah, I agree with you, Graham, wholeheartedly, especially the first part of what you were talking about is they believe it's mostly or just about investments. And because I have people come in and the first thing they're trying to do is push their statement across the desk to me. And I'm like, well, we'll get to that. Like there's a bigger picture here that involves your family that we need to kind of run through first. And then we'll talk about, you're here because you have saved money. I get that. And some people want to just talk about that in the beginning. And that's not what I want to talk about first. I need to talk about other things that are important to the holistic nature of the plan. And let's make sure we got some cohesiveness happening in the plan and that we're moving, at least trying to move you forward. Even if you don't work with us, at least I want people to have value walking out of that first meeting. So yeah, it's definitely more than about the investments. And I think that there are some people that think it's really about like the one-time meeting. And, with us, it's more about the ongoing relationship. And all of our clients that we serve work with somebody at the firm. So we function as a team and we do our internal meetings and we do dialogue and discussion regarding certain clients and how those relationships are to be handled. And not everybody, I guess is what I'm saying, works directly with Cris. Some people work with Emily, who's a CFP. Some people work with Graham, who's a CFP. We have a service advisor, Jacob, who works with several of my client members. And what happens is, by having those people on my team, you actually get better service. Because think about it as a parent, if you have like multiple kids and let's just say your spouse has gone away for a day or so and all 3 or 4 of your kids are like pulling at you at the same time, you can't give them equal attention like they truly deserve. So we do function as a team. And our focus is, that's why we built the Rite Retirement model, the RITE. It's retirement income, investments, tax efficient strategies, and estate and legacy. And a lot of what we're doing is try to put the plan together so that we can do the heavy lifting for you. And we can walk side by side with you, hand in hand, through this journey called retirement. So you can enjoy the last few years, or I say few years, it's probably more than a few in a lot of cases, but you can enjoy the last, call it 1/3 of your life with your family and those that mean the most to you. And I think that's part of our job. It's not just about the investments, which is what I think, as you kind of pointed out, Graham, people just tend to gravitate towards right off the bat.
And it's also not just about the information, because in this day and age, there's a lot of information out in the world, and everything that we're doing is tailored to you. And I think that that's a difference between, just Googling a question and actually getting a professional to do an analysis. Because when you Google something, it's not tailored to you. It's just an answer to a question. But information is all over the place. I think what is really crucial is, one, like I just said a second ago, information that's tailored to your situation, but two, having some accountability that you're going to take action on that information. Because if you come in for a discovery session and, we talk for an hour and 15 minutes, and we give you a few recommendations of things you can just go do today that don't even involve us. And then you come back, a couple week later, 2 weeks later, whatever, and we lay out all these different recommendations and you take some notes and say, I don't know if I'm ready to do this right now. And you don't do anything with the information from the first meeting, and you don't do anything from the information from the second meeting. That was a complete waste of 2.5 hours of your time, or 3 hours of your time. There was no reason to do that. There's no reason to sit down with someone, learn all the things you should be doing, and do absolutely none of them. You would be better off just not doing it. So I think for most people, the real value is not just us laying out all of this information, but saying, we're going to be along your side, by your side, helping you actually get this done. And not just that, we're going to be following up on it and holding you accountable to say, are you doing that? Because you need to do this. You need to do that. I had a client in the other day, a couple days ago, and my notes email to him looks really similar to how it looked last time. And I have a reminder on my calendar in 4 or 5 weeks to follow up again and say, hey, did you do this yet? Because he's fully aware that he's not doing it. But again, I'm going to be on him until he does, because there's a couple things that he really, really needs to get done.
And there's things we can't do.
Yeah, some things we can't do. I mean,
but we can bug you until you get it done.
Exactly. Like, for example, if you're still working and you need to make a change with your 401k, whether that's contributions or how you're contributing or invest, whatever it is, and we're not, managing that account or whatever, you have to take action on that based on a recommendation. But we can bug you about that until you do it. We're not just going to mention it one time and never mention it again if you don't do it, or if you need to, settle something up on the estate side of things, or if you need to get with a CPA about something, or if you need to update a trust. It doesn't really matter what it is. What matters is that, again, you are doing it. It's on your radar, that when open enrollment comes around, we can't switch your healthcare plan for you, but we can send you an email and say, hey, are you going to switch to the high deductible plan and max out an HSA like we talked about? So just all of those things, I think that really is where the value is, not just in the, you could go to your HR department and figure out whether or not you have an HSA available, but are you going to sign up for the plan? Are you going to remember to contribute to it? Are you going to, do the correct maximum? I think all of those things are the more important part, and really where the value comes in, that when somebody's been working with us for a few years, honestly, we have less to talk about. And that's good, because it means they're doing and they've done a lot of the things that we've told them. So I'm not sending them a list of 15 things that they need to work on. I'm sending them a list of 2 or 3.
Right.
And that's a good thing because over time you should be improving in different areas.
Yes.
If we are reviewing it and saying, hey, this has got to get done.
That's how our report card's designed.
Exactly.
It's oftentimes a lot of red. We want to turn as much of that green so that when we're having our meetings, we're talking about things that really matter. We're not trying to fix squeaky wheels. Or we fix the squeaky wheels. Okay, let's talk about how you can spend more money. Well, I don't know if I can do this trip. You can do the trip. I want to know where you went. We want pictures. Show me that you did it.
Aw.
That's the kind of conversations we want to have.
Love that. You know, Cris and Graham, both you were saying people have said, I wish I would have done this sooner, you know. Why is it that people underestimate this value of planning? And then they actually see how valuable it is once they figure it out.
Well, I don't think it's always visible right away. I think you feel it, right? I think there's things that we talk about that where someone says, okay, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Okay, there's immediate value there. But sometimes value is not always visible immediately. And as we kind of noted a few minutes ago, people really focus on returns and not outcomes. And so people tend to focus on the investments and not the whole picture. And I think there's value in focusing on the outcome. And it's hard to quantify how you feel, right? So there's an emotional side to retirement, but knowing that you have somebody that is working alongside of you, you can't put a price on the emotional relief that gives a lot of people. But it's hard to put a price tag on that. And I think sometimes in retirement, when it comes to value, some people think about it's really trying to avoid the losses versus trying to chase gains. And I do also believe that when you get into retirement, the days of chasing gains for most people is probably gone away. But it's also not play box turtle and go in your shell as well. I think there's still an opportunity for us to make returns in retirement. But so many people think it's about avoiding losses, and so many loud mouths out there make it about, well, you can't lose money in retirement. And it's like, yeah, you can. It's just not a good idea to lose lots of money in retirement. It is okay to lose money in retirement, just not lots of money.
Sure. Yeah, we don't want to lose lots of money. Oh, okay. Let's see here. Well, I have another question to ask. Oh, Graham, I guess I want you to kind of react to that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I think it's one of those things where you might not completely understand the value until you've seen it, because of the fact that, like I mentioned before, there's just so much information out there. And so many people, I think, just feel like, oh, well, can always just ask chat if I have a question about that. And you can. And for some things, it will probably be correct, and other things it won't. But what it's not going to do is be personalized to you. It's not going to be following up with you, making sure you're doing the things you need to be doing. And, it's not going to be able to be there for your spouse if you pass away, to, help make those transitions in life and encourage you to still go out and be active and all of that different stuff. So I do think that there is a shift that people have, not just in their perspective of what a financial planner is when they come in, but also in their perspective of, what the value of planning in general is over time.
Yeah, and I think you have to be careful nowadays with AI. And I kind of laughed the other day, and I was thinking, man, I work with a lot of engineers, which is great. I'm a former engineer myself, plant manager as well. So we have the engineer in the spreadsheet. Now we have the engineer, the spreadsheet plus AI. It's just that we're working with in the office. So
right.
I do. And I think a lot of people can agree with this. I think in terms of AI, I think you have to be really careful with that today, because I can't tell you how many times I have to correct AI. And it's
What?
like,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, with what
All the
you're
time.
doing. Yeah.
Like all the time.
Right,
it happens on the daily with me in AI.
Yeah. Wow.
So I tell it it's wrong, and it's like, oh, you're absolutely correct. Thank you for that. I'm like, you're supposed to be helping me. I don't need to be coaching
That's
you.
super funny.
So yeah, anyway, just be careful with AI out there, because there is a lot of stuff that, is being given as quote unquote advice, and it's not the greatest advice. So
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
So you guys always talk about how your early retirement years are kind of the most critical window. Tell us why. Why are those years so important to get right?
Yeah. So I think the last, I don't know, around 5 years of your working years, we have to be careful. We have to be careful. We probably don't want to lose a lot of money. One, because our portfolio and our retirement plan may not be able to sustain that. I also think that psychologically, in the last 5 years, if you lose 20, 30% in your portfolio, you may not have the time to recover, but also you may not have the mental capacity to put up with that from a psychological perspective. So that's really important, the last tail end of your working years. And then I think the first 5 to 10 years really kind of sets the tone. So one of the worst things, and I kid you not, so the big fear of running out of money as a planner, I don't know how you feel about this, Graham, just a quick word here as we get to finish up, but I don't really see that as a big problem on our side, someone running out of money, right? Because you can adjust spending.
Yeah, most people, if they are going to run out of money, will, turn down their lifestyle a little bit to adjust for that. Not everybody.
Correct.
But a lot of people.
Yeah, so I don't see that. But I do think one of the biggest things that could happen is in the first few years of retirement, you see a major market downturn in your portfolio. So I think building a plan to help mitigate some of that, because really the first 5 to 10 years kind of sets the tone for your retirement. So that makes the first few years in that sequence of return risk very, very important to pay attention to. I think it's important to build a plan that can help mitigate and maybe eliminate it to some degree. So I think that's important. I think your tax planning and looking at your tax efficient strategies is really important relative to RMDs, Roth conversions, your charitable giving, your Social Security decisions. All of that really, really is important in the first 5 to 10 years of your retirement, and being flexible. And I think sometimes I can tell you, I'll be 53 this year. The older I've got, the less flexible I become. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yes, literally.
Right?
Yes, for sure. I don't want to say I'm a crotchety old man by no means, but I'm a lot less flexible than I used to be. And just be prepared for that. As the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, you want your retirement plan built with some flexibility. And just remember this. Somebody said this to me a long time ago. It's the small hinges that swing the big doors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Darren Hardy who wrote a book called The Compound Effect. And what the book is about is all of the little decisions that we make along the way compound over time. And I think when you look at your retirement, there are lots of there's some big decisions, but there are also a lot of little decisions that you make throughout your retirement that can compound over time and create a big, maybe it's a tax issue or something like that down the road that you didn't even see coming because you were just focused on, X or whatever. And when I say X, not the social media platform, just, X in general. So I think these are the kind of things that we have to think about early in retirement. And Luann, I just looked down. We are out of time.
I know, darn it.
This has been a really fun show.
Yeah.
I love to talk about the psychology of retirement. I love to talk about, how we coach people. Really appreciate all the listeners and all those that call in each week. We actually appreciate that as well. So Luann, I'm going to give our number out as we end the show. If you'd like to call in and set up a discovery session, you can do that by calling 256-937-2010. Again, our number is 256-937-2010. Call that number, set up your discovery session. Hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. And remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Graham Bauer holds the enrolled agent designation, but is not currently offering tax preparation services. Neither the firm nor its agents may give tax advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any purchasing decisions.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. WG Financial is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial. This radio show is a paid placement.